What's up, everybody? Alessandro here from Tony'sPicks.com. Going to break down some of this college football here for you guys today. We're going to go team by team. We're going to do each video just one team. I'm going to start with mostly these SEC, colleges, and we're going to break down everything here from returning players, transfers, recruiting classes. Obviously, we're going to run through the schedule, give you guys a win-loss. I'm really excited to start a new series here of videos for you guys, give you guys kind of my head thought about some of these teams here and what I'm looking power ranking wise before the season starts and, getting ahead of everything. We got football in less than a month and, let's get right into it. So with Alabama, last year they went 9-4. They've always been the big boy of this conference, with Saban here and 20-year run that he went on, absolutely dominating college football. Last year with Kalen DeBoer, a lot of expectations wasn't met. 9-4 year, lost in that bowl game there to Michigan. That was an ugly game, and it was kind of an ugly season for Alabama with Jalen Milroe at quarterback. He somehow got drafted. I actually expect him to do kind of well at the NFL level. I don't know. It just didn't work out as well as everybody in Alabama thought it would. But on to bigger and better things, hopefully, for the 2025 season for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And first things first, we're going to start with these returning players. On the offensive line, they do have three returning guys. The left tackle, Caden Proctor, the couple guards coming back. Jaden Roberts, one of them, 27 career games played. Proctor was a highly touted kid, the left tackle there, 5-star coming out. He's highly touted, supposed to be a first-round draft pick coming up this year. I remember his first, freshman year, he gave up 12 sacks, led the SEC, just absolute turnstile. He was, last year obviously improved on those numbers with only 2 sacks given up in 10 games played. Expecting a little bit of a median there, somewhere in the middle he'll probably be. This Alabama team as a whole, I could argue that they're really overrated, but you'll see here, we're going to get into it with their scheduling. They might still have a very good year, obviously. And so with the offensive line, 3 guys coming back is not bad. They do have the center transfer. What's his name? Parker Brailsford. Highly touted kid as well, coming out of Washington. Washington had a great offensive line those couple years that he was there. And, him coming over now to Alabama, there's a lot of continuity with Kalen DeBoer. Obviously, probably DeBoer was recruiting him when he was over there at Washington. So, I'm expecting, Alabama to be great up front like they normally are, especially on the offensive line. Running that ball, they got Jam Miller coming back. I'm expecting 1,000 yards out of him. Serious back. Alabama's always putting these guys in the pros. I don't expect nothing less or different from Jam Miller here. And then, with Jeremy and Ryan Williams, these guys here on the outside are elite and special. I see them going to the NFL as well. So it's, the per usual Alabama-type squad, you would think, what you're seeing here with the Alabama Crimson Tide. The only big question mark, obviously, losing Jalen Milroe last year is who's going to be the quarterback. And, you got Ty Simpson, redshirt sophomore here, going to make his first, serious action, hasn't had a start all of his college career. 381 yards passing in his time at Tuscaloosa, the redshirt sophomore. A lot of people think he's more of a pocket passer. I've looked up his numbers in high school. Ran for 1,200 yards as a senior in high school. I know it's high school, but running for 1,200 yards there shows a lot of mobility, actually, from his 6'2", 210-pound frame. I do think he's the front runner just because, he's been with the program for a couple years now. Obviously with the other kid coming in, Keelan Russell, this highly touted kid. A lot of Jaden Daniel comparisons have been getting thrown out with this Keelan Russell kid out of Duncanville. We know what type of product they've been putting out recently. A lot of blowouts and dominating the state of Texas, Duncanville High School. And Keelan Russell, was a big part of that. This kid, 6'3", 200 pounds, looks the part. Like I said, a lot of Jaden Daniels comparisons being thrown out with this kid. If it was me running the team, I would just throw this kid out there day one and say, hey, let's build around this kid and see where he goes for the next 3 years, see where he can take us. Obviously, I think it's kind of a two-headed race between those two, but, you do have the third guy there, Austin Mack. He's a Washington transfer, another guy DeBoer is kind of familiar with. Big kid, 6'6", 230, redshirt freshman, only 39 yards passing in college, not a lot of experience. Former basketball player, 6'6", 230, I'm going to say that again, real big kid. I could see him possibly maybe playing tight end or something in the future. They got to get him on the field somehow, some way. Problem is he's not really that mobile. Only had 1 year starting in high school. And what did he run for? Only 99 yards rushing all season in his senior year in high school. More of a pocket passing, 3,500 yards, 40 touchdowns in his senior high school. So I think they're deep at this quarterback spot, actually, Alabama, as long as Ty Simpson actually shows up and does what he's supposed to do with the highly touted kid at Keelan Russell, backing him up. And then, Austin Mack, the kind of diamond in the rough, developmental type prospect he is. I like what they have, honestly, at the quarterback position. Obviously, the skill positions are good with the running backs and wide receivers that they got. Offensive line is looking solid up front. I've seen better offensive lines come through this Alabama program, obviously. But, if I had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put it like a 7.5, maybe 8, 7.5 out of 10. But on to the defense here. Defense is no longer running that 3-4, obviously, what made Alabama that patented 3-4 that they had with, Courtney Upshaw and all those types of guys, losing his name here, Dante Hightower, all the staple of Alabama players that have come through this program here. No longer running that 3-4. They're going to go out to this 4-2-5 scheme that they even ran last year. Last year, y'all, 10th in scoring defense in the nation, 17.4 points a game given up. That's pretty impressive numbers right there, to be top 10 in the nation in scoring defense. A lot of people would kind of look back at that number because, all they think about is that Georgia game with all those big-time bombs at the end of that game and how crazy of a game that was. But, I like this defense. They got, 7 guys coming back. The defensive line's, going to be stacked. You got LT Overton, 6'5", 280. This guy, you can move him all around that defensive line. He can play at the end. Tackle, you can play up at nose if you want. 6'5", like I said, 280. First-round talent, I think he is. And, you got Tim Keene in there, the nose tackle, going back here, senior-type player here. He's going to stuff the middle. And then, they're deep. They got 8 guys here in this D-line that they can just constantly rotate. Alabama with their top 3 recruiting classes in the last 6 years in a row, they're just going to have a staple of guys going after this quarterback up front. Eldrick Hill, you got Latham, tons of guys that they're going to be rotating fresh all the time. Third down situations going to be getting after that quarterback like they are known for. Then, you got the linebackers here. A lot of linebackers, these linebackers here are a lot like safeties. You got Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, not the wide receiver or anything, but, basically runs like a wide receiver. These guys are, 5'11", 6 foot, 220 pounds, and sideline to sideline. I'm expecting these guys to get drafted as well. When they go to that combine, you're going to see the 4.3, the 4.4 40s. They're loaded on defense, I think, talent-wise. It's whether or not this coaching staff can get them to produce the same way they did last year. A lot of people get the big heads and the egos. You got the draft coming up. A lot of guys, start focusing on that future NFL career and start playing some pretty bad ball. But I don't know. I don't see that here. This group here is experienced. Even in the defensive backfield, Xavier Brown coming back, Bray Hubbard coming back. They got the big-time USC transfer, Damani Jackson, going to be there in the defensive back, corner. I just see this defense, 10th, like I said, 10th in scoring defense last year. I don't see much of fallback there from this defense. I'm excited to see how good this team's going to be this year. If they can compete with the Georgias and Texases finally. They took a step back last year. A lot of expectations placed on Kalen DeBoer, and we'll see if he'll be able to answer, But going on into this schedule here, they're over-under season win total here in Vegas, 9.5 wins. I see the number right here. Gun to my head, I would go over here. And we're about to get right into it on the reason why I would go over the 9.5 on Alabama season win total. Not with everything I just stated as well. Highly touted kids littered throughout this, program. They've had 6 straight top 3 recruiting classes, the ball just keeps rolling. Saban, and now it's DeBoer. It looks like, a lot of people there in Tuscaloosa are real pumped up, and they don't think anything's going to change. They see Alabama being the elite of the elite, and we'll find out, that's for sure. But, this first game, I see them here on the road against FSU. FSU, last year, they went 2-10, just completely, shell of a program they were. It was kind of a shame. There was a lot of expectations with FSU last year. I think Mike Norvell's on the hottest of hot seats, if you ever want to think of one there. They don't get it done this year. I'm talking 8-9 wins. He's definitely probably going to be out of there. I see this Florida State team being really chippy this first game of the year. They've definitely circled this Bama game, no doubt about it. They got something to prove after that ugly year, like I said last year. I do see Bama struggling offensively because they're going to be probably trying to rotate these quarterbacks like a lot of these college programs do those first couple of weeks. I still think Bama just has too much talent on the road at Florida State. Wouldn't surprise me if it's a little bit of a thriller, maybe a 27-14, 27-21 type of score there. But yeah, definitely got to go the Crimson Tide in that first game, at least money line. It's going to be juiced as hell because Bama's a 12.5-point favorite there against FSU. So I don't blame anybody wanting to take the points or even sprinkle the money line if you're crazy enough to think FSU can beat Bama there week one. I just don't think they have enough talent there. That program is rebuilding. They've just been decimated. Like I said, Norvell's on a hot seat. We're going to go with Alabama there in that first game. I think they win it, start the year off 1-0. Then the very next game next week will be their home opener where they play ULM. Obviously, that's an easy W, just another easy little cupcake team for them to play. So we'll call that 2-0 for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Then it gets interesting. They welcome Wisconsin to Tuscaloosa to play. I'm expecting these linebackers to get knocked around a little bit. Like I said, 5'11", 225 type linebackers. Don't get me wrong, sideline to sideline, and they will hit you. But you got these big ogre-like Wisconsin linemen, 330 pounds, 6'8", running at them. I expect that Wisconsin run game to give them some fits. But I still think Alabama just has too much talent on this roster to lose to a team like Wisconsin. Again, another close game I see there. But I will give Alabama the nod there, and I think they start the year off 3-0. But that leads them to the Georgia game. In between the hedges, they have to go. I do not see them getting this win there. I think Kirby Smart has his program a step ahead of Bama right now. Let's just call it as we see. Gunnar Stockton probably going to be the quarterback there for Georgia. Not super in love with him. He has shown some mobility, and he's been with that program for quite some time now. I just think Georgia is, a step ahead of Bama. Simple. Keep it simple there. Having to go in between the hedges, like I said, and beat them is just not very likely. So I think they take their first loss there to Georgia. So they'll be 3-1 after that Georgia game. Then their next game, they get a little bounce-back win, I feel like, going up against Vandy. A lot of people high on Vandy, last year with the Diego Pavia, show that was, basically. I'm going to be fading them all year long. I've just seen Pavia all over the place. He's doing all sorts of media, talking about how he got offered $4.5 million NIL and, driving Lamborghinis. And I just think the guy's completely, not everybody's going to make it to the NFL. Not everybody's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Cash out when you can, and I think, he's cashing out, this kid. Can't say I blame him, but I definitely got to fade him here. And I think Bama rolls over Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a team I'm looking to fade big time this year. I think they take a step back. And, anyways, on to the next game. They play Mizzou at Mizzou. Mizzou's always a tough place to play. We've seen Georgia struggle there in these past couple years recently. They always got a stingy defense and some defensive linemen, that will knock your freaking teeth off if you let them. Mizzou's defensive line is, something to not play with. We will see how they are this year. They've lost a lot of talent to the draft. I know Cook's gone. Luther Burden's gone. So, their offense has tons of question marks. So we will see. Like I said, tough place to play, but I think Bama gets it done there as well. So that would leave us at what? 5-1 after that Mizzou game. And then they welcome Tennessee Volunteers at home. Tennessee in Tuscaloosa. Heupel's been scrambling, trying to find a quarterback. He's going to go to Joey Aguilar, the Appalachian State kid. Went to UCLA just during the spring. saw Iamaleava going to UCLA and said, I'll just go where you came from. And he's now at Tennessee. It's just been a circus of transfer portal type stuff there going on in college football. But yeah, I think Tennessee's scrambling right now, trying to figure out something with the quarterback position, and I see Bama rolling. By then, they should probably have the quarterback position figured out. Tennessee, you're talking about week 6, week 7 in this season at that point. But I still just think Alabama way too much talent. At home, they roll. They beat the Volunteers pretty easily. That would take them to 6-1 heading into the big game against South Carolina in South Carolina. A lot of people high on this Lenore Sellers and South Carolina team. Here I wrote down them possibly losing that game just so I could start giving them some L's, because basically the way I'm looking at it here, they could possibly go 11-1 this year, but 10-2, I'll say I'll give them the L against South Carolina. It's a game I very much think they can win. They have enough talent, like I said, to compete with anybody. They shut down a Lenore Sellers and get after him. I see South Carolina having fits. I don't know if they'll be able to stop Alabama with all that talent they have on offense. So I might just say, you know what, Alabama wins that game. It's at South Carolina. We're gonna say Alabama's gonna go 11-1 this year. So let's just change that to a W there. Obviously, that's a game I'm going back and forth on. It's gonna be a tough game. We're gonna see how these two teams, turn out during the year. But yeah, a lot of people high on South Carolina this year. I see why. You still give me Bama there. So what? We're calling it 7-1, heading into that bye week and then playing LSU the following week. This year will be in Tuscaloosa. We all remember what happened last year in LSU. 42-13 slacking Alabama put on LSU. A lot of these guys from both of those squads are coming back. It's basically the same exact teams versus each other. Maybe the quarterback might be different there for Bama, but I don't see much changing here. Give me Alabama there to beat LSU in Tuscaloosa. That would bring them to what? 8-1. Typical type Alabama season for them. A lot of pressure taken off Kalen DeBoer if they could start the year off 8-1 with a big win against LSU. That would welcome Oklahoma the following week in Tuscaloosa again. We all remember that game as well last year with Jackson Darnold and the Oklahoma Sooners upsetting the Alabama Crimson Tide. What was it, 24-3? Alabama just couldn't get anything going on offense. Brent Venables drew up the perfect game plan to shut down and shut up Alabama. Obviously, they're with that big upset win. I just don't see that happening again this year. Alabama will be at home. I'm not really high on this Hawkins kid that Oklahoma has. They're a quarterback, a lot of talent. I just still think he's a couple years away from being where he needs to be. I would take the Alabama Crimson Tide in that game. So that would make them, 9-1? 2 games left in the year, and then they got the cupcake lined up next week. Eastern Illinois. That's an obvious win there. We'll just not even talk about it. So looking at 10-1 going into the Iron Bowl. And this year I see it a very, very easy Iron Bowl for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm going to get into this Auburn here in my next video, but I see Auburn definitely having a bad year. 6-6, 5-7 type year, struggling to get the bowl game. They're going to be going against Jackson Arnold, like we were just talking about there, former Oklahoma kid. I was not high on Jackson Arnold, and it's 3.0 yards a carry. Just says 4.8 40, and he continues to try to run the ball, and not in love with what he does through the air either. It's very possible that Jackson Arnold's not even starting at this point in the season. They got the other kid from Stanford, Ashton Daniels. Not to talk too much about Auburn here, because we will get into that. I just see Auburn having like I said, a 5-7, 6-6 type team here, and their recruiting classes compared to Alabama's is, it's top 20 compared to top 3, top 15 compared to top 5, number 1 or number 2 compared to number 10. Alabama has always been head and shoulders above Auburn, at least within the last 5, 6, 7 years in recruiting. And so, yeah, I got to give Bama the win there. That would take them 11-1 on the year. Obviously, like I said, there's some sketch games. The LSU game, I said it's going to be an easy win because of how it was last year. That's still going to be, it's LSU at the end of the day. You got to play at South Carolina, like I said, with Lenore Sellers. That's a tough spot. Maybe early in the year, Wisconsin gives them fits with that run game. Obviously, I don't see them beating Georgia in between the hedges. And you can call me crazy, but FSU is going to give them a scare that week 1 there just because they're going to be rotating those quarterbacks. But, yeah, there you go. There you have it, guys. Basically, we're saying to take the over on the Alabama season win total of 9.5 wins. Some pretty nice scheduling for the Alabama Crimson Tide, I must say. They should be able to have a great year this year. Take some pressure off Kalen DeBoer. And let's see how he starts developing these quarterbacks here. I'm really excited to see how this Keelan Russell kid looks. And yeah, guys, stay tuned. Check the channel out. Subscribe. Hit that like button. You guys know already. And yeah, stay looking forward to our videos here that I'll be having out. I'll be dropping the Auburn videos soon. LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Georgia, all these SEC schools, you know. And, you know, if there's a school you want broken down, comment that down below. And, you know, give me some feedback. Let me guys know who you guys are on this year. Some Heisman long shots. Anything you guys want, you know, flood that comment section up. Like, subscribe, and check us out on Tony'sPicks.com. Peace.